I am Patrick Serruys. I'm a professor of interventional medicine and innovation at the University of Galway in Ireland, and it's a real pleasure to be in India and watch the tremendous development of the domestic technology. Now that's extraordinary development of a good friend of mine, Alain Cribier. It was always an obsession to treat the patient with aortic stenosis. He started by the balloon. There was what we call the restenose of the valve. And then his obsession was to do that percutaneously and use a stent in which the leaflet will be attached. And one of the critical moments is when, with a famous anatomopathologist, Renu Virmani, we discovered that the calcium in the valve could really anchor the stent with the valve. And then it was a very long process, starting in 2002 by an heroic patient in cardiogenic shock with one amputation of the legs, having a pressure, as I said, of 80 millimeters of mercury, and Alain Cribier succeeded to implant the first valve. And you should realize, and I did also, that it was not retrograde but antegrade. We were coming from the venous side, crossing the interarterial septum, going to the valve and putting the Y at the exit. And then there was a long process, which was first to treat patient who could not be operated, inoperable. And then from patient who could not be treated by surgery, we moved by randomized comparison between surgery and TAVR in high-risk patient, intermediate patient, and now low-risk patient. That's basically what has been achieved in 20 years. Obviously, the advantage is that you don't have to open the chest. That's point number one. Point number two, you don't have to get a full anesthesia. Most of the case is done under sedation now and no longer with anesthesia. And then you should realize that the calcified valve, the surgeon has to put the valve in the calcified area, and the dimension of the slide, the stent is quite small. So many times the surgeon were ending the surgery with a residual gradient 10-20 millimeters of mercury. With the stent we have much more range of choice, and because we are dilating a piece of metal in the calcium, we can create an effective orifice for the aortic stenosis, which is quite large. That's the key advantage that we have with that technology. Of course, initially everybody was afraid of the long-term follow-up. Are we going to see, like we saw with balloon angioplasty, restenose, quick deterioration of the valve? And that was not true. We have now in some patients, 2002, 2022, they did not all survive, but we have certainly a very long follow-up. And in some of the study conducted by my friend Lars Sondergaard, there is more deterioration in the surgical group than in the TAVR group. It reminds me almost 15 years ago when I was promoting domestic manufacturing of stent in India in 2008, 2007. The same phenomenon has happened. You have now domestic products which are more than competing with the so-called Western product. And I think that's going to have a major impact on your practice in India. Already today we see that the age of TAVR is about 70 years old in India, while it's more in the 80s in Europe. So that means that you already, because an unmet need, you have lowered the age of the patient who are candidate for the TAVR. I think that in this country you still see the infectious disease responsible for the narrowing of the valve, and that's another type of population that we don't see anymore in Europe. In Europe we see basically the degenerative resulting from calcium, maybe related to PLLA, while you have this rheumatic disease in India, plus a high proportion of bicuspid and even monocuspid. So I think that there is a great future by the enormous volume reservoir that you have in this country with this disease, and the fact that you have developed a domestic technology which is far more superior than some other technology. And the fact that within 2 years you went from the first iteration called MyValve to the MyValve octa-core is phenomenal. Really, the concept of going from the hexagon to the octagon with interlaced struts, double skirt, and only 2 rows of metal with a minimal shortening compared to the other valve self-expanding of balloon expandable is a major achievement, major. So I think you can be proud as a country to have that, and Meril Life can be proud to have this product. I think that with time and with long-term follow-up, we should not be jealous of the surgeon. We are not inferior. We believe initially that it will be a fix at the age of 80 for another maybe 7, 8, 10 years. That's not the case. It seems that the durability, which is the key word, the durability of the valve is pretty good, at least as good as the surgeon, maybe even better. So that's a very important point. Of course, there is a few dreamers, and I'm part of it. We have tried to replace the porcine, the bovine valve leaflet by biorestorative polymer. It didn't work too much so far. Maybe permanent polymer will replace. We have even seen a leaflet of metal, very flexible, created. So that will be another disruptive moment, of transformative moment, to go from the porcine bovine leaflet. I think that it's obvious that the reservoir of the patient with aortic stenosis is huge. Before it was available, we had to discuss the case with the surgeon, and in many instances they were turning down the patient. That's much less today, okay? So I think that the therapy for aortic stenosis is much more available for the patient than before. And as I said, as a GP, as a cardiologist, as an internist, it's something that you have to look for very carefully. You have to listen to the heart, you have to ask echo and Doppler to detect this individual who can have a quick fix for their therapy, because today these patients are coming in the morning in the hospital. Of course, the workout has been done before, and then the day after, they are free to leave the hospital, and that's a major achievement. And during the procedure, they are conscious with a nice sedation. And I have seen a procedure in less than 17 minutes, skin to skin. That's amazing, okay? So I think that's good news for our patient in general, and the benefit of TAVR cannot be, is without doubt.